She collapsed after the divorce in court, until a millionaire appeared and claimed her as his wife before everyone. The sound of the judge's gavel echoed through the room like a gunshot to Beatriz Santos' chest. She maintained an upright posture in the uncomfortable wooden chair, but inside, she felt as if the world was collapsing around her. The magistrate's words seemed distant, muffled by the ringing in her ears. By this court's decision, it is established that custody of the minor Sofia Santos Silva will be shared between the parents with primary residence at the paternal home. Beatriz closed her eyes for a moment. 8 years of marriage, reduced to a pile of papers and legal arguments. Her ex-husband, Ricardo, sitting next to the expensive lawyer she couldn't afford, couldn't hide a discreet smile of satisfaction. He had gotten what he wanted. The house, most of the assets, and now what hurt most. Sofia would live primarily with him. "Mom!" Her daughter's soft voice brought her back to reality. Sofia was sitting between her and Ricardo, her large, confused brown eyes. At age 6, she didn't fully understand what was happening, but she felt the tension in the air. "Is everything all right, my love?" Beatriz whispered, stroking the girl's curly hair. Lies. Nothing was right. Ricardo's lawyer stood up, adjusting his impeccable suit. "Your Excellency, I would like to request that the visitation schedule for the mother also be defined. Visitation." The word fell after my back. She bit her lower lip to keep from crying. Her lawyer, Dr. Marcos, a middle-aged man with thick-rimmed glasses, did what he could with the limited resources he had, but it wasn't enough. Ricardo had money, influence, and a legal team she could never match on equal terms. When the session finally ended, Beatriz found herself on the courthouse steps, breathing the heavy, polluted air of São Paulo. The sky was cloudy, as if the city itself understood her sadness. Ricardo passed by her, holding Sofia's hand, without even looking in her direction. "Mom, when will I see you again?" "Soon, Princess," Sofia asked, turning around as she walked with her father. "Very soon," Beatriz managed to answer, forcing a smile. Dr. Marcos approached, putting the documents in his worn leather briefcase. "Beatriz, I'm so sorry. We did the best we could with what we had." She nodded, knowing he was being sincere. The problem wasn't his competence, but rather the brutal difference in resources between the parties. "Thank you, Doctor. At least we got joint custody. You can appeal, but it will cost more money than I have," she finished. Beatriz descended the courthouse stairs, feeling the weight of each step. Her 2010 Corolla was parked 2 blocks away, and during the walk, she tried to process everything that had happened. In just a few months, her life had completely transformed. The confident woman she once was, the respected lawyer in a mid-sized firm, now found herself having to start from scratch. As she got into the car, she finally allowed the tears to fall. She rested her forehead on the steering wheel and cried for a few minutes, letting out all the accumulated frustration, anger, and sadness. Her cell phone rang with a text message from her sister, Carla. "How did it go?" "I'm here if you need to talk." Beatriz wiped her eyes and started the car. She needed to be strong. Sofia depended on her, even if now in a different way, and there was a job interview scheduled for Monday at an office located in the center of the city. A new opportunity, a new beginning. As she drove through the busy streets of São Paulo, observing people in their hectic lives, Beatriz took a deep breath and made a silent promise to herself. Olhu. She would get up. No matter how many times she had to fall, she would always get up. Monday arrived with a fine, persistent rain that seemed to mirror Beatriz's state of mind. She stood in front of the mirror in the room she had rented in a small apartment in Vila Madalena, adjusting the black blazer she had bought on sale. It wasn't the most elegant she had ever owned, but it would have to do. The Copacabana building in downtown São Paulo The office of Silva Mendes Associates was located on the 15th floor. Beatrice checked the address for the third time before entering the elevator. Her nerves were on edge. This was her first interview since her divorce, and she needed this job more than ever. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly styled blonde hair, greeted her with a professional smile. Beatrice Santos, Dr. Silva, is waiting in the meeting room. Beatrice was led down a wide corridor with glass-fronted offices on either side. The place exuded prosperity, modern furniture, artwork on the walls, and a stunning view of the city. It was exactly the kind of environment where she dreamed of working again. Dr. Fernando Silva, a man in his 50s with gray hair and an elegant bearing, greeted her with a firm handshake. Motu. Senorita Santos, it's a pleasure to meet you. We reviewed your resume and were impressed by your experience in business law. During the interview, Beatrice gradually felt more confident. Her skills were solid, her experience relevant, and Dr. Silva seemed genuinely interested in her answers. They discussed complex cases she had given him, her specialization in corporate contracts, and her views on the current legal market. We have a specific client who I believe would be perfect for you, said Dr. Silva, flipping through some pages on his desk. Gabriel Mendez of Mendez Incorporaciones. He has several projects underway and needs someone dedicated to handling the legal aspects of his contracts. The name Mendez is familiar to me. Beatrice remembered seeing the construction company's signs scattered around the city, always on high-end developments. It would be a big responsibility, the lawyer continued. Mr. Mendez is, let's say, demanding, but he's also one of our most important clients. If you can serve him well, I'm sure you'll have a promising future here. I'm prepared for any challenge, Dr. Silva, Beatrice replied, and she truly was. After everything she had been through, no demanding client could be worse than a hostile divorce court. Great. You start on Thursday. Tomorrow I'll introduce you to Mr. Mendez. He has a meeting scheduled here at 2 p.m. to review the contracts for the new venture in Malca. Beatrice left the building with a feeling she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not only had she gotten the job, but also a real opportunity to rebuild her career. She called Carla immediately. Sister, how did it go? Her sister's cheerful voice warmed her inside. I got it. I start Thursday. I knew you could do it. We're going to celebrate tonight. And Sophia, how is she? The mention of her daughter brought a pang of longing. She's fine. Ricardo is bringing her on Saturday to spend the weekend with me. After hanging up, Beatrice walked through the downtown streets, observing the intense movement of people, cars, and street vendors. São Paulo was chaotic, but there was something energizing about that urban energy. She stopped at a small coffee shop and ordered an espresso, allowing herself this small luxury to celebrate. While drinking her coffee, she thought about Sophia and how she would explain to the girl that Mommy now had a new job, that maybe things were starting to get better. She also thought about this Gabriel Mendez, imagining what kind of businessman he would be. Probably just another arrogant and impatient businessman, but she would deal with it. She had learned to be strong. On Wednesday, she would be back in that building, wearing her best suit, ready to meet the client, who could be the key to her life. For now, it was enough that for the first time in months, the future no longer seemed so daunting. The sun began to peek through the clouds as she finished her coffee, and Beatrice took that as a good sign. On Wednesday, Beatrice arrived at the office 1 full hour before the scheduled time. She wanted to review all the documents related to Mendez Incorporaciones projects and familiarize herself with the details before meeting the client. Dr. Silva had left a thick folder on her temporary desk full of contracts, blueprints, and financial reports. At 1:45 p.m., she was in the meeting room organizing the papers when she heard voices in the hallway. Dr. Silva was talking to someone in a respectful, almost reverent tone. Beatrice adjusted her blazer and checked that her hair was in place. "She's very competent, Gabriel. I'm sure you two will work well together," said Dr. Silva as he approached the door. When the door opened, Beatrice stood up to greet the client, and she felt the air escaping from her lungs for a brief, fleeting moment. Gabriel Mendez was not what she expected. Well, probably around 38 years old, with dark brown hair slightly graying at the temples, he wore an impeccably tailored navy blue suit. But what impressed her most were his intense green eyes, which seemed to analyze everything around him with surgical precision. "Mr. Mendez, this is Dr. Beatriz Santos," introduced Dr. Silva. Gabriel approached with firm steps and extended his hand. His handshake was strong, confident. "Dr. Santos, it's a pleasure." "The pleasure is mine, sir." Mendez replied, maintaining eye contact and projecting all the confidence she could muster. Dr. Silva left them alone, claiming to have an important call to make. Gabriel took his place across from Beatrice at the meeting table, and she noticed how he moved with economy of movement, unhurried, but purposeful. "Dr. Silva told me you reviewed our contracts," Gabriel began, his voice deep and controlled. "What's your first impression?" It was her chance to demonstrate competence. "Honestly, there are a few clauses that could be optimized to better protect your interests, especially in the contracts with material suppliers, and I noticed a gap in the insurance coverage for Muka's venture, which could create future problems." Gabriel raised an eyebrow, clearly interested. "Go on." For the next 40 minutes, Beatrice detailed her observations, suggesting specific changes and explaining the legal implications of each point. Gabriel listened attentively, asking precise questions that demonstrated his deep understanding of the business. He wasn't just a wealthy businessman. He was someone who understood every aspect of his operations. "Impressive," Gabriel said when she finished. You identified points that our previous lawyer never mentioned. In 2 years of work." Beatrice felt a wave of satisfaction. Sometimes, a fresh look can identify details that go unnoticed. "Or maybe you're simply better at what you do," he replied. And for the first time since entering the room, he sketched something that could be considered a smile. They spent another hour reviewing specific contracts. Beatrice noticed that Gabriel was extremely meticulous, questioning every comma, but he also demonstrated confidence in his expertise. He wasn't arrogant as she had imagined. He was demanding, yes, but in a way that challenged her to give her best. "There's one thing I need to make clear, Dr. Santos," Gabriel said, at the end of the meeting, putting the documents in his Italian leather briefcase. "I don't tolerate mistakes or delays. My projects involve millions of reais and affect hundreds of families who buy my apartments. There's no room for amateurism." "I understand perfectly, Mr. Mendez. You can count on me." Gabriel studied her a moment, as if assessing whether he could truly trust her. "I have a meeting with investors on Friday at 10 a.m. I need you to review all the contracts we discussed today and prepare a report with your recommendations by Thursday evening. Thursday evening. Is that possible?" Beatrice quickly calculated. It was a lot of work for a short time, but nothing she couldn't handle. "Of course. You'll have the report on Thursday at 6 p.m. "Great." Gabriel stood up, and Beatrice did the same. "One last thing, Dr. Santos. Would you mind attending the meeting on Friday? I'd like you to be present to clarify legal issues if necessary. It would be an honor." When Gabriel left the room, Beatrice realized she had held her breath for much of the conversation. It wasn't just the professional pressure. There was something about Gabriel Mendez that left her slightly disconcerted. The intensity went beyond business. Dr. Silva returned minutes later, clearly anxious to know how the meeting had gone. "So how was it?" "I think it went well," Beatrice replied, still processing the meeting. "He gave me a tight deadline for a report, but nothing impossible." "Great sign." Gabriel doesn't usually give second chances. If he included her in Friday's meeting, it means he was impressed. Beatrice spent the rest of the afternoon immersed in the documents, but occasionally caught herself thinking about Gabriel's green eyes and the way he had described him as impressive. She shook her head, mentally reprimanding herself. She was there to work and rebuild her life, not to be distracted by clients, however interesting they might be. Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Beatrice saved the document one last time and sent the Phage report to Gabriel's email. She had worked almost 12 hours straight reviewing each contract, researching case law, and drafting detailed suggestions, and adjustments. Her eyes burned, but she was satisfied with the result. 5 minutes later, her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. Dr. Santos, Gabriel Mendez. Beatrice felt her heart race slightly. Mr. Mendez, good afternoon. I received your report. I need to discuss a few points with you. Are you free for dinner? The question caught her off guard. Dinner tonight? I have a restaurant reservation for 8 p.m. It's work-related, Pia. Of course, some of the points you raised are too complex to discuss over the phone. Beatrice glanced at her watch. It was almost 6 p.m., which would give her enough time to go home, shower, and change. Sure, where? Restaurante Familia in Villa Olimpia. Do you know it? She recognized it by name. It was one of the most expensive Italian restaurants in the city. Yes, I know it. I'll be there at 8 p.m. Perfect. See you later, Dr. Santos. Beatrice hung up the phone and kept staring at the screen for a few seconds. A business dinner with Gabriel Mendez at an expensive restaurant on her second day of work. Was this normal? She shook her head. She was overthinking it. It was just work. 2 hours later, she stood before the family wearing her best dress, a simple but elegant black one she had bought for events at her previous office. The waiter led her to a discreet table at the back of the restaurant where Gabriel was already waiting for her. He had changed out of his suit into a white shirt without a tie and a dark blazer, more casual, but still impeccably elegant. When he saw her approach, he stood up to pull out her chair. Thank you, said Beatrice, feeling slightly nervous. Thank you for accepting the invitation at the last minute, Gabriel replied, resuming his seat. I apologize for the urgency, but I have a complicated schedule and needed to discuss your report before tomorrow's meeting. The waiter approached to take their drinks. Gabriel ordered red wine. Beatrice opted for sparkling water. Don't you drink wine? Gabriel asked. I do, but I prefer to keep a clear head during work discussions. Gabriel smiled. A genuine smile, this time, an intelligent one. I should follow his example. They spent the first 20 minutes discussing the report. Gabriel had noted several observations and asked specific questions about each suggestion. Beatrice noted that he had an impressive memory for detail and a deep understanding of the legal implications of each decision. The issue of insurance coverage that you raised, Gabriel said, cutting the risotto he had ordered. You can save at least $500,000 if there are any problems with the construction schedule. Exactly. It's a small investment, considering the potential risk. How did you learn to think that way? To analyze not only the legal aspects, but also the financial impact. Beatrice hesitated for a moment. Personal experience, I would say. I've been through some difficulties recently. I learned to value every penny and to think about the long-term consequences of each decision. Gabriel watched her with interest but didn't press for details. Sometimes difficulties make us better professionals. That's true. As the evening progressed, the conversation naturally drifted to less complex topics. Gabriel told her about how he had started in the real estate business, building his first project at age 98 with a loan that almost bankrupted him. And you? He asked. Did you always want to be a lawyer? Since I was little. My mother always said I argued better than she did. Beatrice smiled, feeling more relaxed. Ensure that everyone has their rights fully respected. and she succeeded. The question made her think about her own divorce, about how she hadn't been able to defend even her clients, to do things properly. Not always. Sometimes the system isn't as fair as we'd like. Gabriel seemed to realize he'd touched on a sensitive subject. But you keep trying. That says a lot about your character. When dinner was over, Gabriel insisted on paying the bill. It's a business dinner. The company covers it. Outside, the night was cool and the busy streets of Villa Olympia glowed with neon lights and car headlights. Gabriel walked Beatrice to her car. "Thank you for your dedication to the report," he said. "I rarely see this level of attention to detail." "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mendez." "Gabriel," he corrected. "I think we can skip the formalities." Beatrice smiled. Gabriel. Then, as she got into her car and watched him drive away toward a black BMW, Beatrice realized she'd spent 2 hours talking to Gabriel Mendez without once thinking about her ex-husband, the divorce, or her financial worries. It had been a long time since she'd felt so present. On Friday morning, she arrived early at the office to prepare for the meeting with the investors. She had a feeling that this would be an important day, not only for Gabriel's project, but for her own career and perhaps, just perhaps, for something else she wasn't yet ready to name. Friday, 9:45. Beatrice was in the office meeting room, organizing documents for the third time. She had arrived 2 hours early to ensure everything was perfect. The gleaming mahogany desk was tidy with neatly organized folders, glasses of crystal clear water, and a projector that had already been tested and was working. Gabriel arrived punctually at 9:50, accompanied by 3 middle-aged men, expensive interns. He greeted her with a professional nod, but Beatrice noticed a glint of approval in his eyes when he saw the impeccable organization of the room. "Gentlemen, this is Dr. Beatriz Santos, our legal consultant," Gabriel introduced. "She will be responsible for clarifying any legal issues regarding the project act. The investors, Mr. Rodriguez from Banco Capital, Mr. Ferreira from a private investment fund, and Mr. Costa, representing a group of São Paulo businessmen, greeted Beatriz courteously. But she noticed a certain skepticism in their eyes. It wasn't uncommon. In a world still dominated by men, she was used to having to constantly prove her competence. Gabriel began the presentation with impressive data about the UK project, 240 apartments, strategic location near the subway, luxury finish at an affordable price for the upper middle class. Financial projections were solid, the timeline realistic. "The total investment required is our $85 million, explained Gabriel, clicking to the next slide. "With a projected return of 32% in 18 months, as Mr. Rodriguez leaned forward to listen. "The numbers are attractive, Gabriel, but we are concerned about the legal risks. We've had recent problems with other projects due to documentation issues." It was then that Gabriel looked at Beatrice. "Dr. Santos, could you address the legal protection measures we've implemented?" Beatrice stood up, feeling all eyes on her. It was her time to shine. "Certainly. First, all the plots of land underwent a complete legal audit, including verification of debt clearance certificates and analysis of property ownership history over the last 20 years. She clicked to the next slide, which showed a detailed flow chart. "We also implemented a tiered insurance system that covers everything from construction delays to unexpected environmental problems. In addition, all contracts with suppliers include penalty clauses that guarantee compliance with deadlines." Mr. Ferreira interrupted. "And regarding the building permit issue, we know that the São Paulo City Hall can be unpredictable." "Excellent question," Beatrice replied, anticipating the objection. "The building permit has already been approved in the first instance, and we have a lawyer specializing in urban planning law monitoring the process daily. In addition, we have prior approval from the energy concessionaire and Sebes Bigascienses." For the next 45 minutes, the investors bombarded Beatriz with complex technical questions, environmental issues, consumer protection, code regulations, potential problems with neighbors, bobos for the construction. Bobos for the construction. For each question, she had a well-founded and detailed answer. Gabriel observed everything in silence, but Beatriz could feel his growing satisfaction. When Mr. Costa asked about the possibility of changes in municipal legislation affecting the project, she responded by citing specific legal precedents and the jurisprudence of the Superior Court of Justice STJ. Impressive, murmured Mr. Rodriguez to his colleague, thinking no one had heard. At the end of the presentation, the investors retired for a private conversation in the hallway. Gabriel and Beatriz were alone in the room. "It was brilliant," said Gabriel. "There was something in your voice that went beyond professional pride. You answered questions I didn't even know could come up." Beatriz felt her face flush slightly. "I tried to anticipate all possibilities. I researched similar cases until late yesterday." "Until late?" Gabriel frowned. "You should have told me. You could have postponed the meeting." "It wasn't necessary. I like what I do." Gabriel studied her for a moment, as if seeing something in her he hadn't noticed before. "It's not just work for you." "It is," before Beatriz could answer. The investors returned. Mr. Rodriguez spoke for the group. "Gabriel, we are impressed, not only with the project, but with the legal structure you have put together. It's the kind of professionalism that gives us confidence." "So, do we have an agreement?" Gabriel asked. "We have an agreement," confirmed Mr. Ferreira, extending his hand. After everyone left, Gabriel and Beatriz were alone again. He approached the window overlooking the city. "You know what impressed me most today?" he said, still looking outside. "What?" "The way you weren't intimidated. They came prepared to question every detail, and you were ready for them all." Beatriz joined him at the window. "I've learned that, in life, we must always be prepared to defend our positions. Sometimes it's the only way to survive." Gabriel turned to look at her. "You speak like someone who has been through many battles." "Some," she admitted. "But today was a victory." "Today was our victory," Gabriel corrected. "And I think it deserves a celebration. Do you have plans for lunch?" Beatriz hesitated. Technically, he was just her boss being kind after a good professional result, but there was something in the way he looked at her that suggested it might be more than that. "I have no plans," she replied. "I know a quiet place nearby. We can talk about the next steps of the project." As they descended together in the elevator, Beatriz asked what exactly work had started to look like. Something more and more. And more importantly, if she was ready to find out where it might lead. Unicum. The restaurant Gabriel chose was a surprise. A small French bistro tucked away on a side street in Idayim Bibi, far from the frenetic bustle of the big business centers. Small tables with checkered tablecloths, soft lighting, and an atmosphere that invited intimate conversations. "It wasn't what I expected," Beatriz admitted, as Maroya sat down at a table in the back of the room. "What did you expect?" "Something more corporate, one of those executive restaurants where everyone talks about business loudly. Sometimes we need a place where we can really talk. Here, no one will interrupt us with calls about stock market quotes." They ordered the daily menu. Grilled salmon for her, mush risotto for him, and a bottle of white wine that Gabriel selected with the naturalness of someone accustomed to frequenting fine restaurants. "Now that we've closed the deal," Gabriel said, pouring the wine, "tell me about yourself, for real this time." Beatriz took the glass, but didn't drink immediately. "What do you want to know?" "How such a talented lawyer was available just when I needed her." "Why did you leave your previous job?" It was the question she dreaded. Beatriz looked around the restaurant as if the walls, decorated with the scenes of Paris, might give her the courage to talk about her personal life. "I went through a complicated divorce," she finally said. "Very complicated. Gabriel leaned slightly forward, not out of intrusive curiosity, but a genuine concern. I'm so sorry. 8 years of marriage, a 6-year-old daughter. Beatrice felt the familiar pang in her chest as she spoke about Sophia. My ex-husband, he's influential, has money, connections. In the end, he managed to keep almost everything, including his daughter, joint custody, but she lives mostly with him. Beatrice finally took a sip of wine, trying to dissolve the lump in her throat. I see her on alternate weekends and Wednesdays. Gabriel was silent for a moment, processing the information and the work. She was a partner in a smaller firm. When the marriage ended, I had to leave. Conflict of interest. My ex-husband was a client there too. Beatrice laughed bitterly. I lost my husband, my house, my routine with my daughter, and my job, all at once. That's why you worked late on the report. That's why you were so prepared today. I need to rebuild everything, prove that I can be independent, that I can give Sophia a good life when she's with me. The waiter brought the dishes, but neither Gabriel nor Beatrice seemed very interested in the food. There was an intensity in the conversation that made everything else secondary. Can I ask a personal question? Gabriel said. Beatrice nodded. You regret the marriage? The last few years, yes, but not completely. Sophia was born from that marriage, and I learned a lot about myself in the process. She looked him straight in the eye. And you've been married before? Gabriel stirred the risotto with his fork, seemingly choosing his words carefully. Almost 5 years ago. What happened? I discovered she was more interested in my bank account than in me. Gabriel's voice held a hint of hurt he tried to hide. The night before the wedding, I overheard her talking to her best friend. She was talking about how financially comfortable she would be after marrying me. Wow, that must have been devastating. It was liberating, actually. Better to find out sooner rather than later, like in your case. They ate in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own memories. Beatrice discreetly observed Gabriel, the way he would cut his food with such precision, how his fingers held the wine glass, and how a small wrinkle formed between his eyebrows whenever he was pensive. Can I ask you something? She said. Of course. Why did you hire me? Really, my resume is good, but there are lawyers with more experience available. Gabriel stopped eating and looked directly at her. Do you want the honest answer? I always prefer honesty. It was the way you analyzed the contracts in the first meeting, Yin. You weren't trying to impress me or tell me what I wanted to hear. You were genuinely concerned about protecting my interests, even if it meant pointing out problems. It's rare to find someone like that in the business world. And now, after today, Gabriel smiled, a smile different from any she had seen before, warmer, more personal. Now I'm sure I made the right choice, and not just from a professional point of view. The last sentence hung in the air between them like an unspoken confession. Beatrice felt her heart race, but also a pang of fear. She was just beginning to rebuild her life. Was she ready to get emotionally involved with someone? And on top of that, with her boss? Gabriel, she began, but he gently raised his hand. You don't need to say anything now. I know it's complicated. I just wanted you to know that I would really like to get to know you better not just as a professional. Nah. Beatrice looked at him, those green eyes that seemed to see through all the barriers she had built around her heart. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to surrender again, to trust someone, to build something new. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, no pressure. When they finished lunch and Gabriel insisted on paying the bill, Beatrice realized that something had changed between them. They were no longer just client and lawyer. They were two people who had shared their scars and discovered that perhaps they could heal together. On the way back to the office, while Gabriel drove his BMW through the congested streets of São Paulo, Beatrice looked out the window and thought of Sophia. On Saturday, her daughter would be with her for the weekend. Maybe it was time to start believing that better days really could be coming. Saturday morning, 9:30. Beatriz was nervous, tidying up for the third time the small apartment she had rented in Villa Maddalena. She had bought fresh flowers, filled the refrigerator with Sophia's favorite snacks, and set up a special corner with children's books and games, all to make that space as welcoming as possible for her daughter. The doorbell rang punctually at 10 o'clock. Ricardo was at the door with Sophia, who was holding a small backpack with clothes for the weekend. The girl ran into Beatrice's arms as soon as she saw her. "Mommy, I missed you." "I missed you too, princess." Beatrice hugged her daughter tightly, inhaling the familiar scent of her hair. It was this moment that made everything worthwhile. Ricardo handed her the backpack without much ceremony. "She needs to study math. She has a test on Monday, of course. We'll study together, won't we, Sophia?" "I'll pick it up on Sunday at 6 p.m., said Ricardo, already turning to leave. "Beatrice," called Ricardo. "Thank you for being punctual." He just nodded and went down the stairs without looking back. Sophia explored the apartment with curiosity. It was much smaller than the house where she lived with her father, but Beatrice had made an effort to make it cozy. Walls painted light yellow. Some plants, family photos, and picture frames scattered throughout the rooms. "I like your room, Mommy," said Sophia, jumping on the bed. "Can I sleep here with you?" "Of course you can." "How about we make pancakes for breakfast?" They spent the morning in the kitchen. Sophia made more of a mess than she helped to, but she laughed and talked nonstop. The girl talked about school, her new friends, a book she was reading about princesses. Beatrice absorbed every word, every laugh, trying to make up for all the moments she wasn't there. "Mom, why don't you and Dad live together anymore?" Sophia asked suddenly while eating a pancake covered in honey. Beatrice had prepared herself for this question, but still felt a pang in her chest. "Sometimes, Sophia, people grow up and discover they are very different. That doesn't mean we stop loving you. You are the most important thing to me and your father. But you get sad when I'm not here." "I do, but I'm very happy when you're here, like now." Sophia nodded, seeming satisfied with the answer. "Can I tell you a secret?" "Of course. I like it more when I'm with you. You make better pancakes than Mrs. Carmen." Beatrice smiled. Carmen was the maid Ricardo had hired to take care of Sophia. "Don't tell her that." Okay. In the afternoon, they went to Ibirapuera Park. Sophia ran across the lawns, fed the ducks in the lake, and insisted on going on a paddle boat. Beatrice watched her play, mentally registering each movement, each expression of joy from her daughter. They were sitting on a bench eating popcorn when Beatrice's phone rang. It was Gabriel. "Sorry to bother you on Saturday," he said. "I just wanted to know if you could review a draft contract on Monday. A new opportunity came up." "Sure, no problem." "Are you okay? You seem different." Beatrice looked over at Sophia, who was busy chasing pigeons a few meters away from where she stood. "I'm with my daughter. It's my weekend with her." Gabriel paused. "Sorry to interrupt. Enjoy yourselves together." "Gabriel?" "Yes, thank you for asking if I was okay." After he hung up, Sophia came running back. "Who was the mom from work? Do you like your new job?" Beatrice thought about the question. "Yes, I do. It's challenging, but I like it." On Sunday morning, they went to Mass at the church near the apartment. Sophia was quiet during the sermon, but held Beatrice's hand the whole time. Afterwards, they had lunch at a pizzeria Sophia chose. "Mommy, when are you going to have a big house again?" Sophia asked, playing with a napkin. "I don't know, Princess, but in the meantime, our little apartment will do, won't it?" "It will, but it would be nice if it were bigger. Then I could have my own room here." The comment touched a sensitive spot for Beatrice. She so wanted to give Sophia more, to provide the same comfort the girl had at her father's house. "I'll work hard to make that happen someday," she promised. I'll help you. I can tidy my room and do the dishes. Beatrice laughed, hugging her daughter. You already helped me by being my special girl. At 5:30 p.m., they were back at the apartment packing Sophia's things for her return. The girl was quiet, clearly reluctant to leave. I don't want to go, she said, hugging Beatrice. I know, my love. I don't want you to go either, but we'll see each other on Wednesday, remember? Promise? I promise. When Ricardo rang the doorbell, Sophia gave Beatrice one last tight hug. I love you, Mom. I love you too, more than anything in the world. After they left, the apartment fell silent. Beatrice sat on the sofa, looking at the toys Sophia had left scattered around the living room. The emptiness was always difficult, but this time there was something different. There was hope. Her phone vibrated with a text message from Gabriel. I hope you had a wonderful weekend until Monday. Beatrice smiled, typing back. We did? Thank you. For the first time since the divorce, she could imagine a future where she wouldn't always be fighting alone. A future where maybe Sophia could have that room of her own she'd dreamed of, and who knows, a future where Beatrice could allow herself to be happy again. Monday arrived with a clear sky and a feeling of possibilities in the air. Beatrice entered the office at 8 a.m., an hour earlier than usual, feeling energized after the weekend with Sophia. There was a stack of documents on her desk and a note from Dr. Silva. Gabriel asked you to go to his office at 9 a.m. hours. Urgent project. At 9 o'clock sharp, Beatrice knocked on Gabriel's office door. He greeted her with a smile that seemed warmer than usual. How was the rest of the weekend with Sophia? He asked, indicating a chair in front of his desk. Wonderful. Thank you for asking. Beatrice sat down, noticing that Gabriel had decorated the office with plants and some modern paintings. You mentioned an urgent project? Yes, she said. But first Gabriel got up and went to a small corner table where there was a tray with coffee and croissants. I thought maybe I hadn't had breakfast properly. Beatrice was surprised by the gesture. You didn't need to. Of course I did. I found that I work better when the people around me are well taken care of. They drank coffee while Gabriel explained the new project. A group of international investors had expressed interest in developing a luxury residential complex in Barra Funda near the future São Paulo Campinas' high-speed train being fechas. It's a project worth millions of reais, Gabriel explained, showing blueprints and feasibility studies on his tablet. But the legal aspect is extremely complex. It involves international law, environmental issues, expropriations. We would need someone dedicated exclusively to this. Beatrice analyzed the preliminary documents. It was truly a complex type of project that could define a career. What would my role be? Exactly. Total leadership of the legal side. You would assemble a small team, coordinate with partner firms in other countries, and be my right-hand man in all negotiations. Then the time frame, if months to structure everything. If we succeed, it will be Mendes Incorporações' biggest project. And Gabriel paused. It would be an opportunity for you to definitively establish yourself in the market, the kind of project that opens doors. Beatrice felt her heart race. It was exactly the type of opportunity she needed to completely rebuild her career, but it was also risky. If something went wrong, her reputation could be compromised. May I ask why you are offering me this? There are lawyers with more international experience. Gabriel leaned forward, his intense gaze fixed on hers. Why do I trust you? Because you think beyond the obvious, and because he hesitated. Because I want to work with someone I can completely trust. There was something in the way he said it that suggested it wasn't just about work. Beatrice felt that familiar pang of nervousness, mixed with anticipation. Do I need time to think? Sure, but not too much time. The investors arrive on Thursday, and we want to present a structured proposal. Beatrice spent the rest of the morning analyzing the project documents. The more she studied, the more fascinated she became. It was complex, challenging, but also within her capabilities. And if she could execute it well, it would truly be a milestone in her career. During lunch, she called Carla. "It's an incredible opportunity, Bea," her sister said. "But are you sure it's just work?" "The way you talk about this, Gabriel, is complicated," Beatrice admitted. "He's attractive, intelligent, successful, but he's also my boss. And I just got out of a disastrous marriage. Not every man is like Ricardo." "I know, but I need to focus on my career now. Sophia needs me to be strong and independent. Sophia also needs to see her mother happy." In the afternoon, Gabriel contacted her again. "Want to go for a walk? Sometimes we think better when we're walking." They walked down to Praça da República, strolling between the offices and shops of the city center. The intense movement of São Paulo surrounded them, but there was something intimate about walking side by side through the city streets. "Can I talk about something personal?" Gabriel asked. "Of course. Since my almost wedding, I've focused only on work. I built a company, accumulated success, but it's stopped in front of a flower stall. But I never allowed myself to trust anyone again, until I met you." Beatrice felt her heart race. "Gabriel, I'm not asking for anything now. I just want you to know that you brought something into my life that I didn't even know was missing, regardless of your decision about the project." They bought coffee from a cart in the square and sat on a bench, watching the people go by. "And if I accept the project and things between us get complicated?" Beatrice asked. "Then we'll deal with it like adults. But I won't let the fear of what might happen stop me from trying." Beatrice looked at him, determination in her eyes, sincerity in her voice. She had spent so much time being cautious, protecting herself, that she had almost forgotten what it was like to allow herself to feel something for someone. "I accept the project," she said. Gabriel smiled. "Are you sure?" "I am. It's risky, but sometimes we need to take risks to grow. And as for the rest," Beatrice took a deep breath. "As for the rest, let's see where it takes us." Gabriel extended his hand to her, and when Beatrice accepted it, she felt an electric current run through her arm. Maybe Carla was right. Maybe it was time to allow herself to be happy again. On Thursday, she would be presenting the project to international investors. It was a gigantic step in her career, but as they walked back to the office hand in hand, Beatrice realized that perhaps she was taking an even bigger step in her personal life. For the first time in a long time, it didn't scare her. Tuesday, 6:30 a.m. Beatrice was already in the office, surrounded by piles of documents, open legal codes, and 3 empty coffee cups. She had only slept 4 hours, but the adrenaline kept her awake. In 2 days, she would be presenting the legal structure of the biggest project of her career to investors who were moving billions. Gabriel arrived at 7 a.m., bringing bread and fresh coffee from a bakery. The French woman was nearby. When he saw the state of the room, papers scattered everywhere, colorful Post-it notes stuck to the walls, Beatrice with her hair haphazardly tied up and reading glasses, he stopped at the door. "Did you sleep here?" he asked, worried. "Of course not," Beatrice lied, trying to fix her hair. "I just arrived early." "You can exhaust yourself before the presentation." "I'm fine. I just need to finish analyzing the international contracts and then..." Gabriel held her hands, interrupting her. "You're trembling." Beatrice looked at her own hands and realized he was right. The excess caffeine and lack of sleep were taking their toll. "It's very important, Gabriel. If I mess this up, you won't, You're the most competent lawyer I know." Gabriel guided her to the chair. "But you need to be in a condition to show it." He served fresh coffee and insisted she eat the sugar loaf. "Now tell me, what's really making you nervous?" "It's not just the project, Beatrice sighed, finally allowing herself to sit for a few minutes. It's that this is my chance to prove that I can be independent, that I can give Sophia a good life without depending on anyone, and you're going to succeed. But you don't have to do it alone. I always did everything alone during the marriage, during the divorce, but now you're not alone. Gabriel knelt beside her chair. We're doing this together. The eye contact between them intensified. There was so much that wasn't being said, so many feelings developing alongside the work. Beatrice felt like leaning in and kissing him, but the phone rang, breaking the moment. It was Dr. Silva informing her that the investors had moved their arrival forward to Wednesday afternoon. One less day of preparation. Great, Beatrice murmured sarcastically after hanging up. Hey, Gabriel lifted her chin with his finger. We'll manage. How about we divide the tasks? I'll take care of the financial and engineering aspects. You focus only on the legal structure. They spent the whole day working side by side, pausing only to have some quick meals. Gabriel demonstrated an impressive understanding of the project's technical aspects while detailed every possible legal complication and its respective solutions. That evening, when they finally decided to stop, Gabriel suggested having dinner at the same French bistro where they had lunch the previous week. I need to go home, Beatrice said. I have to see Sophia tomorrow. Sophia? I thought you two saw each other on Wednesdays. Ricardo changed the day because he has a business trip. It will only be for a few hours, but you don't want to disappoint your daughter. Gabriel nodded, understanding. Gabriel nodded understandingly. You will see Sophia, and tomorrow morning we shall finish the last details together. They went to a 24-hour diner on Augusta Street, a stark contrast to the elegant restaurants Gabriel usually frequented, but he seemed perfectly at ease eating a hamburger and chatting with Beatrice about everything except work. Can I meet Sophia sometime? He asked suddenly. The question caught Beatrice off guard. You want to meet her? Of course, she's an important part of your life, and I... Gabriel hesitated. I'd like to be a part of your life, too. Really? Beatrice felt her heart race. It was a big step. Introducing Sophia to someone meant admitting that something serious was developing between them. Maybe, she said, when things are more settled. I understand, no pressure. On Wednesday morning, Beatrice met Sophia in a park near the school. The girl ran into her arms, as always, but Beatrice noticed she was quieter than usual. Are you okay, princess? Mom, Carolina from my class said that divorced parents always find new boyfriends/girlfriends. It's true. Beatrice felt her stomach clench. Why are you asking that? Because Dad has a new friend. She came to dinner at our house yesterday. The information hit Beatrice like a punch. Ricardo was already dating someone. On one hand, she felt relieved. It meant he had really moved on. On the other, she worried about Sophia. And how did you feel about that? Confused. She's pretty and was nice to me, but Sophia hugged Beatrice tighter. But what if Dad likes her more than from me? Oh, my love. Beatrice knelt down to be at her daughter's height. Daddy will always love you more than anyone in the world. And so will I. Nothing and no one will change that. Okay. And you, Mommy? Are you going to get a boyfriend too? Beatrice thought of Gabriel, of the way he took care of her, how he made her feel valued. I don't know, Sophia, but if that happens someday, it will be with someone who also loves you very much, I promise. When she dropped Sophia off at school, Beatrice headed to the office with a turbulent mind. In a few hours, she would be presenting the most important project of her career. And in the midst of all this, her personal life was becoming complicated in ways she hadn't anticipated. Gabriel was waiting for her with coffee and an encouraging smile, ready to change their lives. Looking at him, Beatrice realized that perhaps their lives were already changing, regardless of the outcome of the presentation. Wednesday, Q, 1:45 p.m. The main meeting room of the office had been transformed into a high-tech operations center, 2 projection screens, audio system, for video conference with London and New York, and a polished desk that reflected the ceiling lights. Beatrice adjusted her blazer one last time and checked that all the documents were organized. Gabriel entered wearing a navy blue suit that cost more than many people's monthly salary, but he went straight to Beatrice. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm about to skydive," she admitted. "Nervous, but ready." "You look beautiful," he said softly. And Beatrice felt a wave of heat rise up her neck. "Gabriel, I know it's inappropriate to say this before a business meeting, but it's true." Before she could answer, Dr. Silva entered, accompanied by 3 impeccably dressed men and a woman. The investors, James Richardson, a Briton in his 50s who controlled a European real estate fund, Chen Lu, a Chinese businessman specializing in mega-urban projects, Robert Mitchell, an American representing a pension group, and Stella Marchetti, an Italian with extensive experience in sustainable development. "Ladies and gentlemen," Gabriel stood, "it's a pleasure to welcome you. This is Dr. Beatriz Santos, our legal director for the project." Beatrice greeted each person, noticing their scrutinizing glances. It wasn't hostility, but rather the natural curiosity of experienced investors getting to know the person who would be managing their millions. "Dr. Santos," said James Richardson with a heavy British accent, "we understand that you structured the entire legal aspect of this venture. It's a considerable responsibility for someone so young." It was a test. Beatrice recognized immediately. "That's true, Mr. Richardson, but experience isn't measured solely by age. If you told me many of the innovators who revolutionized the real estate market would never have had their chance." Chenu chuckled discreetly. "Well put. Let's get to the numbers." During the first hour, Gabriel presented the financial and technical aspects of the project. The numbers were impressive. 200 residential units, an integrated shopping center, an international school, a club, and a green area equivalent to 3 football fields. Total investment of $80 million. Projected return of 35% in 24 months. Then it was Beatrice's turn. She stood up, connected her laptop to the projector, and took a deep breath. "Gentlemen, before discussing the legal structure, I need to be transparent about something. This project is complex. Anyone who says otherwise is lying to you." The frankness provoked an exchange of glances among the investors. But complex doesn't mean impossible. It means it needs to be very well planned. She clicked to the first slide, a detailed diagram of the proposed corporate structure. "We will create a holding company in Luxembourg to optimize international tax matters with subsidiaries in Brazil. Responsible for local operations. This will protect investments and allow for the repatriation of profits with the lowest possible tax burden." For the next 45 minutes, Beatrice detailed each aspect: environmental licenses, labor issues, supplier contracts, insurance, potential litigation, and its resolutions. For each potential problem, she presented not just one solution, but 2 or 3 alternatives. "And what about Brazil's political stability?" asked Robert Mitchell. "Could changes in legislation affect our investments?" "Excellent question." Beatrice moved to a slide with graphs. "We analyzed legislative changes over the last 15 years and identified 3 possible scenarios. For each, we structured specific contractual protections. In addition, we suggested political insurance through a Swiss company that would cover 80% of the investment in case of drastic changes in legislation." Stella Marchetti leaned forward. "You mentioned sustainability. How do we ensure we meet European green building standards?" Beatrice smiled. "I had anticipated this question. We have already started conversations with the German Green Building Council for DGNB certification. Furthermore, we will incorporate solar energy technologies, a rainwater harvesting system, and certified sustainable materials. The project will not only meet European standards, it will exceed them. When the presentation ended, the room fell silent for a few seconds. Beatrice looked at Gabriel, who gave her an almost imperceptible smile of encouragement. Jane L. was the first to speak. Impressive. You thought of details that our lawyers in Hong Kong don't always consider. Duffy said, James Richardson, Dr. Santos. May I ask about your previous experience with International Project X? It was the question she dreaded. This would be my first direct experience with a project of this international magnitude, but I have studied similar cases in Europe and Asia, consulted experts in 3 countries as she breathed deeply. Honestly, I believe that sometimes the lack of biases from previous experience can be an advantage. It allows you to think innovatively. Richardson nodded slowly. Honesty. I like that. The investors retired to deliberate for 30 minutes. Gabriel and Beatrice were left alone in the room. You were brilliant, he said. Regardless of the outcome, you were brilliant. Do you think we succeeded? I'm sure we did. When the investors returned, James Richardson spoke for the group. Gentlemen, we have a proposal. We are interested in investing, but on one condition. Beatrice felt her stomach clench. We want Dr. Santos to have an equity stake in the project, not just as a consultant, but as a partner. If she believes in the project so much that she structured everything this way, we want her to have a direct stake in its us. Gabriel looked at Beatrice in surprise. She was in shock. Unexpected, she managed to say. I need to think about it. Of course, said Stella Marchetti. But understand, your competence and dedication impressed us. We want you invested in the project, both emotionally and financially. Once the investors had departed, Gabriel and Beatrice were left all alone again. Do you realize what this means? Said Gabriel. They don't just want your services, they want you as a partner. Beatrice sat heavily in a chair. In a few hours, her life had completely changed from newly hired lawyer to potential partner in a $280 million project. And you? She asked. How do you feel about this? Gabriel approached, and for the first time, gently touched her face. I feel proud, and in love with a woman who has just won over international investors. The kiss that followed was inevitable, charged with accumulated tension, shared success, and the promise of a future neither of them had dared to imagine. When they parted, Beatrice smiled. I think I need to call Sophia and tell her that Mom had a very good day at work, and I need to call my partner and tell him that our firm has just gained the best lawyer in the country as a partner. Out, São Paulo continued its frenetic pace, entirely unaware that 2 separate lives had just become definitively intertwined with one another.